Hello, everybody. It's been a little while, but I am absolutely starstruck today because I have a real celebrity in the house with us. This is Terry Boyette. You may have seen her on Fox, on the Ingram Angle, Newsmax. She's going to be on Inside Edition and a bunch of other outlets because she has been lucky enough to have gross misfortune happen to her. As if you've been following her on TikTok, you've seen the horrible mess that an illegal squatter in her Texas home caused. Basically, turned the house into a drug den. So we're going to talk in depth about that. Talk about her experience with law enforcement, with the legal system in Texas, trying to work through the situation. And lastly, we're going to talk about what can be done. What can be done about this? And we're going to have a great discussion. More on that in a second. I first want to wish everybody a very happy Easter. It was Easter this past
Chris,
Sunday.
you don't celebrate Easter. You're going to hell. Oh, for your wife. You're doing this for your wife. Okay. Oh, you're not married. Only she's married because marriage.
Right, exactly. But I want to wish everybody a very happy Easter. And if you don't celebrate Easter, I'll wish you a happy Transgender Day of Visibility, because that's what our lovely president felt very, very compelled to bring up. Now,
he says he didn't. He says he didn't do that, Chris. So
here, quickly before we head into the squatting business, I'm going to share the way. I'm going to show two things. How did President Biden issue? Or wait, am I frozen? I'm going to show two things.
a little bit.
How did President Biden handle his Easter message, and then how did President Biden handle his transgenderism message? So, let's take a look quickly.
You know what? With all that's been going on, I haven't even seen these, so I'm very interested to see this.
Let's start with Easter.
Okay.
The White House press released this on Easter. It's a nice message. I have no issue with it, other than the fact that Joe Biden himself is somehow Catholic, even though he loves abortion. But it says, Jill and I send our warmest wishes to Christians around the world celebrating Easter Sunday. Easter reminds us of the power of hope and the promise of Christ's resurrection. As we gather with loved ones, we remember Jesus' sacrifice, we pray for one another and cherish the blessings of the dawn of new possibilities. And with wars and conflict taking a toll on innocent lives around the world, we renew our commitment to work for peace, security, and dignity for all people, from our family to yours. Happy Easter, and may God bless you. Okay, I have no issue with that. That's a nice Easter message.
And as a Christian, I'm not offended by that message in any way.
No,
I think it was quite lovely and respectful. So I will speak on behalf of Christians. I am not offended. I thought it was a lovely message. There was absolutely nothing wrong with that message.
See, we're fair. We give credit where credit's due in little doses, even to Joe Biden. But the
message was fine. Yeah.
Here's the message he sent 2 days before Easter. This long thing about transgenderism. Because March 31st every year, it's not always Easter, is Transgender Day of Visibility, whatever that means. So the White House issued, and it was, people took issue with the way that this was phrased, because if you look up these National Day calendars, it's always March 31st, but it says,
I just want to point out, when we're talking about size,
yes,
that over 65% of Americans identify as Christian, and less than 1% identify as transgender.
If you take people 18 and below, it's 90%. You have to. You have to remember that. So, okay.
Fair. I'm going to celebrate Easter. People who are trans are going to celebrate Trans Day of Visibility. Some people are going to celebrate both.
Terry, are you telling me that you're such a hateful bigot that you celebrated Easter instead of Transgender Day of Visibility? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, I did actually. I took a nap, but yes, I did. That's how I.
You transphobe! I can't believe that's terrible. But anyway, so we got a couple little nice paragraphs about Easter, and we got a huge, long diatribe about not only how we have to uplift transgenders on the 31st, but the extremists that are proposing hundreds of hateful laws that target and terrify transgender kids and their families, silencing teachers, banning books, and even threatening parents, doctors, and nurses with prison for helping parents get care for their children. So obviously that evoked a lot more emotion out of our president than evil.
Yeah.
So we're not going to have a long discussion on this, but I just wanted to point out Joe Biden got very, very emotional and emotionally charged about the hateful extremist Republicans, like you and I, who want to harm trans kids. And, we got a little nice Easter message on Easter.
I don't know why people keep saying I don't want to harm anybody. Except maybe the squatter that broke into my house, but I don't.
But Terry,
and honestly,
there's nothing more harmful than preventing a young boy from chopping off his genitals. There's nothing more harmful than that.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. You're right. I am the devil incarnate, evil personified, right here.
So,
can you see my horns?
Yes. So anyway, we're not going to have a long discussion about that. This has been covered on a lot of other outlets, but we do wish everybody a happy Easter. We hope everybody got to celebrate and have a good time.
If I wish trans people a happy Trans Day of Visibility, I do. I don't. Okay, if you want to celebrate, if it falls on the 31st, I just don't understand. I think I don't understand the White House's
overemphasis. Yeah.
Overemphasis or inequality of emphasis, and again. Over 65% of Americans identify as Christians or believing in God, and less than 1% identify as trans.
Exactly.
So
it's a mystery we'll never understand. And an even bigger mystery, and this is where I want to get into the crux of our discussion tonight. Terry, first of all, I want to start kind of at the beginning with what's been going on here.
So for those of you who've been following, I had a squatter in my house in Texas while I've been home taking care of my mom. And today I finally got my eviction done, only to find that pretty much everything I own has been stolen and that my house, well, I'll show you some video of how awesome it looks. So just starting with the front door, it used to be black. This lovely pile of trash instead. Yeah, that's a brand new mattress, or it was when I bought it last year. Here's where I used to have a refrigerator. Yeah, and then here's my kitchen, which is now apparently a junk room, and my chef's pots that I saved that are now just been left in the sink. My kitchen, it actually flowed quite well, and it went through, to the laundry room, which the light's now missing and has no washer and dryer. It does, however, have some rotten and gross food. Yeah, that's amazing. Also, I'd had this painted and had shelves. Somehow the drawers on my wet bar are warped, and I don't know what this gray color is. Come down to the hallway and you can see, look, more trash. Oh, also, every single light in the ceiling has been taken down. And
thermostat, and you pulled the wires out. Look, it made a hole.
This is where my Nest thermostat was, and now, there's nothing. So that's awesome. For those of you who hate landlords, just so you know, this wasn't even my tenant. It was a squatter. Here's my guest room. I don't know what any of this is. And then there's a thing of stinky water in my floor, a purse that's ruined, and some other stuff. I don't know what that is. And then here's my master bedroom that I had painted. Learned to put up wallpaper for. You don't have to like it. I loved it. And now, I don't know what this is. Also, this is a bed frame. And this was a brand new bed that was in the box that's now covered in filth and completely stained. And finally, the patio. Where is my mattress that I saved up for so I could get a really nice high-end one? I slept on it 3 nights before I had to go to Florida. So anyway, today's my birthday. Happy birthday to me. I got my house and now I have this to deal with. All right. I hope this person who did this steps on a Lego every day for the rest of their life. And I hope I can find some people to come haul all of this off. Yeah, life's awesome. All right, have a great day.
Unbelievable.
That video doesn't even, Chris, that doesn't cover the bathrooms.
Oh, I believe it.
You can't appreciate the smell. It is just disgusting.
I believe it.
And also, when the refrigerator and the washer were taken, the water was not turned off, and so there's water been leaking, and it's actually like in the wall, like it's seeped up into the wall. The cabinets have started to split and swell, so that that video is bad enough, but it completely misses the one bedroom where for some reason they painted part of the room light gray, part of it dark gray, part of it black, and part of it navy blue.
Wow.
It's just random paint.
Well, make sure you pay them for their work.
Yes.
You gave your house
and
a
that's
new
what
one.
I'm asking. So for people who don't know, I'm going to tell the whole. I'll tell the story.
Yes, I was just going to
bought.
go back to the beginning and kind of walk us through the timeline here.
Okay, so I bought this house in 2020. I got a really good deal on it in a time when the market was at its height. The original this house had the original owner who built it in 1974. Were the only people who'd ever lived in the house.
Wow.
And then unfortunately they'd raised their kids there. The wife passed away. The husband continued to live there, but he developed Alzheimer's, and the house had gotten run down. When he passed, the family sold the house. Somebody came in to flip it. They did kind of the minimum, but it looked nice. It had some good upgrades. But I fell in love with it. I love a whole 70s vibe. I also love a big mid-century modern vibe. The house was perfect for that. It had a wet bar, a giant dining room, 2 patio. I mean, it was just perfect for entertaining. And it was old school enough that I loved it, but new school enough I could, modernize it. So bought the house, lived in it. I got to, after buying it and, getting, saving it for a down payment, I got to a place where I was ready to do some remodeling and painting. So I went on Thumbtack. I like to use, locals or new businesses, small businesses. I come from a small business family. That's where I found the electrician who did a fantastic job. It's where I found somebody to do some tile work, did a great. So I found a handyman, kind of a jack of all trades. Hired him. He did some painting. He, put up some shelves. He, helped do some buildings in the closet, stuff like that. Helped out with some of the wallpaper. I did some of the, changes in some of the flooring. And so it was just somebody to come in and kind of do a jack of all trades thing, right? So every month or so I would pick a project and be like, all right, I'm going to put new shelves in, or I'm going to change the door out, stuff like that. This guy did a great job. Okay. When I first started, he was fantastic. He was there. He was fast. He was quick. He didn't overcharge me for supplies. He just did a really great job. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to have some more work. Can I give you a call? Yeah, great. So he worked on my house off and on for over a year, and I never had any problems, right? Nothing was ever stolen from the house. The workmanship was good. If I didn't like something, fixed it right away, right? So I had no reason to think, that there were any problems. So then, my father got sick and passed away at the end of 2022. As we go into 2023, my sister and I realized my mother has dementia, and so we're going to have to make some changes to our life. And so the idea initially was, after we talked to the doctor, is that we would have my mom, Sandra, come and live with me for a few months, or 6 months, and then we would maybe have her come back and live with my sister, so that each of us could stay in our homes and be with our friends, be with our husbands. We didn't want to put her in a home. We still don't. And, maybe that would help. And the doctor said, you just have to try it. So change of gears. I'm getting the house ready for mom to come. I'm traveling back and forth to Florida, trying to get everything settled with my dad, get this house, my sister and I going through things, trying to get things cleaned up, trying to get my mom's medication regulated. There's a ton going on. So finally I'm like, okay, the guest room's done. I'm going to have, get mom. So I told him, and there was an electrician, and I think, there was a guy doing some landscaping for me. I said, look, I'm going to go to Florida for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to bring my mom back for her first visit. I'm going to see if she'll stay with me for a month, and we'll see how it goes. Right. So, but I'll contact you guys when I get back. Right. They didn't have a key to my house. They didn't work on it when I was out of town. I said, but I'll contact you guys when I get back. Okay. They were like, okay, fine. And then I came to Florida, and a friend of mine went by the house. I think I was here. It was early June, 2nd, 3rd. I don't remember the exact day. Friend of mine went by the house it was the 19th. I remember that because I called the police and said, "Hey, I didn't realize you were staying in Florida and you'd leased your house out and you have someone living there." And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't lease my house
So
out to
just for
anybody."
clarification, this was how long after you moved?
I'd been gone about. Well, let's see. If I left on the, I'd been gone about 16 days at that point.
16 days. So just to clarify for people watching, when you had him regularly coming in and helping, that was while you were still living in Dallas. When you had him doing work. So you had no.
I was home.
Right.
Yeah, I was
So
home.
you weren't guessing that this guy was on the up and up. He really was professional and good and easy to deal
Yes.
with. It. Okay. Yeah. So just to get that out there, that this was not a case of you were bamboozled by somebody or somebody
No.
pulled the wool over your eyes and you were naive. You dealt face to face with this guy,
Yes.
and there was no
Yep.
issue for over a year.
Yeah. He did. When he came in, the first work he did was he painted a room for me. He got it done in a day. It looked fantastic. And I was like, "Hey, I'm going to have some more paint going on. I want to put up some wainscoting and trim. Can you do that?" "Yeah, absolutely, I can do that." So, I waited a month or two, called, I think, 6 weeks. "Hey, can you come back in? I'm ready to paint this room and put up some trim." Yeah, he came in and did it. No problem. I mean, there was just no issue with his work, and he was friendly and helpful, and prices were fair. So he was starting a new business, so I wanted to support that. And same with the electrician. He was a young guy starting out. He did great work, but he was also licensed. I mean, you have to be licensed to be an electrician. So,
So in hindsight, there was nothing where you're like, man, I knew there was something up with him. Nothing like that.
no,
Yeah.
there was nothing that would make me think. And I'll actually tell you, I got some insight. I met his ex-wife and we've actually become friends. So I can give you some insight on, I think, what went wrong. But so I was like, "Hey, I'm not," and I realized I hadn't been having as much work done because I'd been going back and forth to Florida and Texas. So, looking back, there was probably a change, but I wasn't engaging enough to see anything going on. Right. So I was here, I think, about 16 days. It may have been 15, but I got a call. "Hey, somebody's in your house." I was like, "No." I called the police, and they were like, "Well, is this a tenant?" "No, I don't have a tenant." "Well, how long has he been there?" And I said, "I don't know. I've been gone about 2 weeks." And they said, "Oh, well, if it's been like more than 10 days, this is going to be a civil matter." And I was like, "I don't understand what you mean. How is this a civil matter? This person's not supposed to be in my home." And they're like, "Well, you're going to have to evict them." And I said, "But they're not supposed to be." They didn't even write a police report. I had a conversation with the front
Wow.
desk, and that was it. Because our insurance is "Do you have a police report from that call?" I said, "No, they wouldn't give me one."
So just
They told me it was a civil matter.
So just to clarify, the bizarre thing about this is there's a wide variety of situations that can be both criminal and physical, and not criminal and physical, criminal and civil, where you could destroy somebody's car and get arrested for, or let's say you could lend somebody your car. That person could drive drunk and destroy the car. That person will be arrested for driving under the influence. They might be arrested for destruction of property. But it can also be a civil matter because you can sue for the cost of the car, the cost to repair that car. So it's not mutually exclusive in a lot of other scenarios that something can be criminal and civil. So in this case, what you were told by police was that after that 10-day period or whatever runs out, it ceases to be criminal and becomes only civil. Is that accurate?
It seems to be. And look, I want to be
Wow.
clear. There's no hard cutoff of 10 days. What they said to me exactly was, "Well, after about 10 days, we consider it a civil matter." So I don't know. You could call them and it could be 7 days. You could call them and it could be 30 days. They just said, "Well, after 10 days, we really kind of consider it a civil matter."
So when they said we consider it a civil matter, does that mean it was up to the police officer to make a personal judgment of whether it should be handled criminal or civil? That's bizarre. Because to me, that sounds bizarre. It sounds bizarre to me.
That sounds like, it sounds like that's where the police are like, "We're not going to get involved." So, you go, "We're not going to get involved." So you're going to have to go to court. And I was like, but they're not supposed to be in my house. And I said, "How do I evict somebody who's not a tenant?" "Well, you'll have to." So I thought, how hard can this be to kick somebody out of my house who doesn't belong there? Right. And so I thought, I'll do it myself. I went online, I, read about it. And after I sent the letter and did the notice, then it was oh, well, you have to get a court date and you're going to have to do, file a writ. And I was like, okay, I can't navigate this I don't know how to make this happen. So I ended up having to hire an attorney. So that delay, that 6 weeks delay was mine, because I thought, well, how hard can it be to throw somebody out? But then there was all this documentation I had to provide, and I was like, but they're not a tenant. I don't have a lease to provide. I don't have a payment history to provide. I don't have these things that you have to provide to the court in order to get on the docket. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll have to hire an attorney. I don't know how to get around this. And so I had my court case, that started in September. We sent all the notices. They had to expire. And from September, I think, I want to say 12th, but don't quote me on that. But mid-September, it took till December 5th to get a court date.
Wow. So about 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
2 months.
3 months. Yeah. Yeah, about 2 months. And so when I went before the judge, and most of the people up there were a landlord and a tenant with a lease, right?
Yeah, because that's the most typical scenario. Yeah.
Right. And so when I went up there, I had the paralegal from the attorney firm with me, and the judge is like, okay, I don't understand. I don't see a lease here. And the paralegal was like, well, there is no lease, Your Honor. This person is not supposed to be there. Well, I don't understand. Why aren't you suing for back rent? And so she's like, well, there was no rent, Your Honor. The person's not supposed to be there. Well, this just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand. I mean, I don't see a lease here, because the squatter, he did not show up. And finally, they're just kind of going back and forth, and I just threw my hands up and I said, Your Honor, this person broke into my house. They are a squatter who is not supposed to be there. And I remember she looked at me and went, oh, you just want access back to your house?
Well, no, you want him gone, and you want to be compensated for the destruction.
And I'm like, look, it was no big deal. Like, this isn't a complete violation, right?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'd like to get back into the house I pay for.
So
goes,
go ahead first.
Yeah, so I was like, she's like, okay, I'll grant the eviction. She said, but with the holidays, I want to give some extra, because usually you have to wait 10 days. So for 10 days, usually he could come in, and if he had a lease, or if he had a reason he was supposed to be there, he could come to court and appeal it. She said, well, with the holidays, I don't want anybody to be homeless over Christmas and the holidays, so I'm going to extend the appeal to 30 days out. So
I want to pause here for 1 second, because I think if you're not fully aware of the context here, it might be easy for some people to go, well, that's compassionate. Poor guy, he's a sick guy, right? And even as people who are compassionate, like, on some level, you can get that, like, of course, you don't want people to be homeless on Christmas, but here's the problem with that. This isn't a guy that wandered into your house, finding a random empty house and saying, well, nobody's here, I'm gonna lay down here. Right. This was a guy that obviously had some forethought and intention behind what he's doing, because he knew you, he had a relationship with you, he worked on the house, he knew you lived there, right? So he knew
my dad had just died. He knew my mother was sick. He knew all of those things, because I had told him, hey, my dad passed away. I remember I called him and I said, look, he was scheduled to come for some work, and I said, you can't come from work. My sister just called. My dad's in the hospital. We don't know how long he has. I've got to go. I'll get back in touch with you about finishing up. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so he knew that my father had just passed away. Yeah. He knew that my mother was sick and I was planning to bring her to Texas. He knew I had just been laid off from work.
Yeah. So in my mind, this is a premeditated crime where he actually, with forethought, exploited the tragic life circumstances in your life to better his own life at your expense. That's what he did. So we can have all the compassion in the world for people in general who are struggling, going through their own shit. But this was a premeditated crime to take advantage of you.
Yeah. He knew what I was going through and what I had on my plate and decided to move in. And here's the most frustrating part. So this person breaks into my home, right? I have to go through this whole process. We have now found where when he got the eviction notice, right, and he got that there was a court date, that's when he started selling my possessions online. So if the police had arrested him, I would still have most of the things in my home. But when he got the eviction notice and knew, hey, I've got a court date coming up and I've got time, he started listing my washer and dryer, my refrigerator, my dining room table,
Unbelievable.
my jewelry, all of
Unbelievable.
that. And so he had time to sell all of that and continue to use drugs and destroy my home, right? But not only that, Chris, after 30 days, it was a little more than 30 days, the appeal expired. The court would issue a writ, and that means, hey, sheriff, you can go out and kick this guy out of the house, right? So after he got the additional time to appeal, he had a yard sale and sold my stuff. Like, they are literally giving him time to steal from me. This whole process literally gave him time to steal all my appliances and large possessions and then have a yard sale and sell all of my small possessions.
The other thing that's kind of stands out to me when I hear this story is how cavalier the activity was. It wasn't like he was doing little underground, like he's listing the stuff online so the public can see it. He's doing stuff out in the yard where anybody walking by can see what's going on. So he knew he was going to get away with this.
Yeah. And, the thing is, because I, work from home, and then my people, I was traveling in and out with my dad. I think my neighbors just, when he said, and they had seen him there doing work, other people had asked him to do work. They were like, and he was like, oh, well, she went out of town for her family. I'm staying here. It didn't seem crazy to them, right?
Yeah, because they assumed he was a family friend of yours, or maybe even a relative.
Yeah, because he had been there working for, like I said, I think close to a year. And other people had come up and asked him, they'd see, hey, could you paint this for me or fix this for me? Yeah, so this wasn't bizarre. I think the thing that people are like, well, why would he go off the deep end? And the insight that I got was that around Christmas, when all this stuff was happening with my dad, his son passed away. His son from a previous relationship, who was young, I think he was 17 or 18, died of a drug overdose. And he didn't really know how to deal with it. I don't know that anybody knows how to deal with that. And he had, at one time, I think he'd been sober for over 15 years, had used drugs. And I knew that. And look, I worked, my first career was as a social worker. I worked with drug addicts. And when people tell me, and he did not drink, he never showed up on the job intoxicated. That's usually something I can spot a mile away. But to me, when you can overcome, from what his wife told me, he had a very rough childhood. That part I found out afterwards. But if you can overcome a tough childhood, if you can overcome making the mistake of getting addicted to drugs and turn your life around and be in a successful, happy marriage for, I think they'd been together 7 years, married 4 or 5. You have built relationships. You have built your own business. Yep. I want to support that. That to me is another part of the American dream.
Oh, yeah.
Where I got a pile of crap. I didn't make the best decisions and made some mistakes, but I have turned my life around and taken back control, and now I'm successfully working, running my own bit. Hey, I want to champion that. I want to be that person's customer and be like, yeah, I support a small business. I support someone who put in the work and time to turn their life around. Yeah. And I hate to say that I'm someone who would be like, well, I'd never hire anybody with a drug past again, because I know people who've been sober for decades, who have done amazing things, right? So when somebody tells, and he was upfront at first, he said, I just want you to know that in the past I had a problem with drugs. I've been sober, I think he said 15.
So he was forthcoming. So he was forthcoming about that with you.
Yeah, he didn't hide it. And I said, oh, well, I think that's fantastic. And he said, I volunteer. I try to help people who are turning their lives around. And I was like, great. I'm all about it, right? I'm all about helping people achieve that. And so but he didn't know how to handle. I don't know that anybody would know how to handle losing a child. Apparently, he started using, and honestly, Chris, and I could be way wrong. I don't think he intended. I think he intended to be out of my house when I came back. I think that was his wife had put him out because he was using, and she had her grandchildren and people who came, and she's like, I don't tolerate drugs. She'd put him out. I didn't know that, right? But she'd put him out in June. I don't think he had anywhere to go. And he thought, well, Terry's not here. I'll go break into her house and stay. And once you start using drugs,
it robs you. You totally spiral. And I think this is why, you hear people say, legalize all drugs because it's a victimless thing, and it's not. It's really not, because you could still, even with what this guy has done, you could still, and I'm sure, Terry, because you're a very kind person, you probably still could have it in your heart to say, you know what, my heart grieves for the loss that he had, and absolutely, because it's not black and white.
I feel horrible for him. I do.
Yeah, you can be angry. You can, and
at the same time, I do, Chris. People have asked me repeatedly, you need to expose him. You need to put his name out there. And I just told someone, I said, I can't. I said, because while there is the homeowner part of me and looks at my loss, I also look at and go, this person has lost they've lost a child. I can't even imagine.
And you know what else? Look at the support
support system. They've lost their family.
Yeah,
they lost their support system. They lost their, and the thing about drugs is, you are literally destroying yourself. There is nothing more horrible and destructive. This is a person who is so bereft of life, so hurt, that all he can do is think about, how can I numb this next, right?
Right, and it also takes away the remorse that someone in their right mind would feel about destroying someone else's house and someone else's home.
Yeah, well,
and I think
because their thing is, life has been unfair to me, so it's okay for me to be and again, Chris, I'll go back. I worked with drug addicts, and I think this is one of the things that people are kind of like, what's going on? I don't take what drug addicts do personally, because it's not about me. Here's the thing. If he could have found another house to break, he'd have done the same thing. This is not about...
personal to you.
The only thing a drug addict thinks about is, how can I get high next? And if I have to steal from this person and hurt this person and hurt this person, doesn't matter if it's their family, somebody who's been nice, it doesn't matter. All they want is to be numb and to be high. And so while I am angry and I want him prosecuted because he broke the law, I also understand that what he did wasn't about me. It was about getting high.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be the person that was in a circumstance that helped them do that. So I just, as much as I want to be that angry, cruel person to him, at the same time, I can't imagine losing a child. And I look and think, that destroyed him, and now he's destroyed his life. And nothing that I'm going to say, nothing anybody else is going to say to him is going to do more harm than what he's done to himself.
Here's the other thing, Terry. You're a problem solver. You have a problem solving mentality. So there's the two avenues you could have. You could expose him, drag him all around the internet, and make him spiral further. But that won't help you, because the damage is done to your home, right? Yeah, so the other avenue that you could take is, how can you affect change to prevent this situation from happening to somebody else like you? And I think that's the avenue you've chosen. So you've been on New York Post, did a feature about you. You've been on Ingram Mangle so far. You've been on Newsmax once. You're going to be on again. And I think you're trying to spread the word, not to bash an individual, but to raise awareness about this problem. And so exactly. And so, Terry, what do you see as the avenue forward for you in terms of trying to make a difference with this issue?
I gotta tell you, Chris, I got Senator Bob Hall, who is the senator over my district. His office responded, and their legislative person is supposed to contact me to start talking about a bill, right?
Awesome.
And look, I want that bill. Their next session is until 2025. I have to ask, what am I paying taxes for if you're not able, if you're not working right now? What am I? Maybe that's the next thing I tackle. Is what the hell are you people doing all year? But
Right.
there has to be something that, and I'm not talking about tenants. Tenants should not be people who've signed a lease and they're legally and they're doing things right. They need to be protected, but we have laws to protect them, right? So my goal is to get a bill in Texas, and if anybody else, I've had other people from other states contacting me like, hey, how do I get this rocking and rolling? Then I will help you and, tell you, what I did. And I, will post videos and try and get other people from your state to call. But I will tell you, I wasn't getting much traction. And then thankfully, I had some help with people on TikTok. I had some other people post videos. And apparently, Senator Bob Hall got a lot of calls because I got 3 calls back from his office within an hour or so. And somebody who contacted me on TikTok, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of you. We're responding. We're responding. So, plus I called him out on national TV, which, they always want to hear. Because I was like, I'm trying to get a hold of Senator Bob Hall, but he won't call me back. And then I got a call back. So
Well, I think this is an example that's also great for everybody to see, because this is an example of where government has the opportunity to serve we the people. And we have to see if they do, because we complain about the government, and there's a lot of sucky stuff about the government. We wish we didn't need government. But this is a situation where the government
very evil.
But this is a situation where the government can make a difference. We'll see if they do. We'll see if they follow through. But they can.
Oh, they're going to. They're going to. If I have to go to Austin, Texas, and bang on every door of every politician there, Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, I don't care who you are, I am going to get a bill passed in Texas, if for no other reason than they don't ever want to see my face again. I am going to get a bill passed in Texas.
So,
if I have to, Chris, if I have to go on a diet and become a healthy person so I can live longer to get that bill passed, I'll stop eating sweets because I'm getting that bill passed. Okay? I'll give up bacon to get this bill passed. It's happening. Know it, Texas. Know it. It's coming. I am to the point, Chris, where I have talked to people on TikTok. I see it on the news, but more the people I've talked to and heard their stories. And I've had people tell me, you need to move out of your house, just give up. And I get the shrug from the police, and the district attorney doesn't want to do anything. And you know what? No more. No more. I don't care if I'm the only citizen that does it. I'm standing my ground. I'm staying in my house, fighting to put a law in. I am going to campaign for a district attorney who will do something about crime. But until we the people decide no more, not another inch to corrupt politicians, not another inch to these criminals, not another inch to being ignored, this is going to continue. And I have drawn my line in the sand, and I'm there. I've had enough. So I have decided to take my anger that I could put at this person who is destroying their life, and I'm putting it on the system that failed him and failed me. And I'm getting.
You know what? Done. If the system had acted faster, he might be sober today.
Yeah,
he might be sober today.
Chris, that's true, because he wasn't using enough. I could tell if they'd arrested him and put him in jail. And given him an opportunity for treatment, and I used to work in drug treatment. I'm a big proponent of helping people because drugs is so horrific. None of this.
Because you know what?
None of this.
Yeah, and because you know what? If he's been sober 15 years before, he can do it again. It's within him to do it again. And the system failed him as well to steer him on that path to do it again. So
yeah, because they could have been like, hey, we can save your house. We can get this guy in jail, or maybe if he dries up for. And most addicts, when they relapse, once they get a chance to sober up, they're like, "Oh my God, what have I done? I don't want this."
Yeah.
And they not all, but most of them that I've seen do, because they value the life they have, they value their sobriety, they know the path that they're going down, and so if this could have all gone different if we had just had a law that said, "Hey, you can't do this."
Yeah.
So. I've drawn not another inch will I give to the apathy and corruption of our society. I'm done. I'm
Absolutely.
done.
Absolutely.
And
And you know what?
this
Go ahead.
this is shots fired for me at me, and I'm fighting back. I'm a fighter. I've always been a fighter, and so let's go Texas.
I love it.
Let's go.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's a bigger issue even than this situation. We actually saw this actually was released by the New York Post on March 21st. A TikToker, um, and this kind of went viral. The New York Post covered it. I'm going to share this video. This TikToker, who is, oh, sorry. One sec. Am I frozen? Okay.
No,
This
you're fine.
TikToker, who is an illegal immigrant, by the way,
Yes.
made a video that has over 500,000 views where he is telling people how
Tell him to come squat in my house. I'll solve it for him. Tell him to come get some.
he's telling people
Tell him to come get some.
how to squat illegally. So let's take a look at this video that went viral here because this is a big problem. Hold on one second.
Well, just so you know, Chris, you can only squat illegally. So there's no legal squatting.
True, touche.
Yeah, there's only, yeah. I can't see the video.
And live in their home refuses to leave.
Oops.
No. Mm-mm.
So as you can see, this is a huge problem, and it was actually very timely that this happened to you because it was already kind of making the headlines, and then it was kind of, it was fortunate that it happened to you now, where you could ride the wave of fame that comes
Oh,
with it.
yeah.
But but I guess but I guess the question is, what can we do? And I think I want to really call out in a positive manner. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, he passed,
Yes.
or rather, the Florida legislature passed some great legislation that cracks down pretty toughly on illegal squat. Well, again, all squatters are illegal, so I'll just say on squatters. House Bill 20, House Bill 621, which Governor DeSantis just signed on March 27th, allows property owners to request that law enforcement immediately remove a squatter from their property if the following conditions are met. Number one, the individual has unlawfully entered and remains on the property, which is true in your case. The individual has been directed to leave the property by the owner but has not done so. That's an easy step as well. And number three, the individual is not a current or former tenant in a legal dispute.
There you
So
go.
again, that's what squatting is. He wasn't a
Yeah.
tenant.
No.
And in Florida, and I'll read from the press release from DeSantis, it will be a quick and simple to reclaim your home from squatters, avoiding costly delays, litigation, and missed rents. HB 621 also creates harsh penalties for those engaged in squatting and for those who encourage squatting and teach others to scam. So it also cracks down on people like that guy in the video who's telling
Yeah.
others to do this.
Who, by the
So
way,
here's the-
ICE has caught. By the way, he's been
Yes,
arrested.
yes, I
ICE
heard
caught
that.
him. So,
Good,
Yeah.
good. So this bill makes it a first-degree misdemeanor for making a false statement in writing to obtain real property, or for knowingly and willfully presenting a falsified document conveying property rights. So even aside from the squatting itself, just producing that fraudulent information is now a crime. It becomes a second-degree felony for any person who unlawfully occupies or trespasses in a residential dwelling and who intentionally causes $1,000 or more in damages. Easy peasy here. Way more than that.
easy for me. I'm looking at like 200 grand. So,
Lord.
yeah, done. Yeah.
and a first-degree felony for knowingly advertising the sale or rent of a residential property without legal authority or ownership. Now, did you face that situation here? Did he try to rent it out to other people?
He did after he was kicked out. So the eviction was on a Wednesday. And on Friday, I got a call from the cops. I was still in Texas. I went out there, and there was a woman and a guy who had, I promise you, it was 30 bags and backpacks and little suitcases all at the door because he had told them they could move in and rent there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so this guy would have been in big doo-doo had this happened in
Yes.
Florida now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to tell you, they're like, hey, the legislative writer's going to contact you to see what kind of bill you want. I'm literally going to print the bill from Florida and go, let's do this.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just, here, you don't have to do anything. Just change the name. Let's go down there and get it done. Okay? This is easy peasy. Other people on TikTok have contacted me and said, hey, I'm contacting my state rep and congressman and telling them that we want a bill. So I'm just going to email them the Florida one and go, here, just put a line through Florida, put Texas, and let's vote on this crap and get it done, okay?
So I guess the question, what I want to end on here is, why do you think so many states don't have these protections? Because who is it serving? Who is it benefiting to not crack down on squatters?
I think there's a couple reasons, Chris. Now, the first one is to me, this is not a political party issue in the actual squatting. Yeah. Right, because people are like, what cracked me up, people, vote blue and this is what you get. I don't vote blue. Well, and then people came on, oh no, this is Trump. And I was like, it's not. So here's the thing. Squatter laws have been on the books since the 1840s. They were initially put in to help protect Indians. States expanded them during the Great Depression because there were people who were tenant farmers who were being kicked off their land. People were being kicked out of apartments. Nobody had any protections.
Yeah, the other thing was, during the westward expansion of the United States, there was certain land that was just totally unclaimed, and so what it meant was if somebody said, hey, this little plot's going to be mine, and it wasn't owned by anybody, somebody else going to come along and just kick them off and say, no, it's mine. It helped...
Right, exactly.
Right, it helped people have legal claim to land that nobody else had claim to, which obviously is not the case anymore.
Right, and so those laws, you cannot blame either part. These laws have been on the books forever.
In fact, it was actually President Lincoln who signed one of the first major Homestead Acts. And you know what? Yes. So what if he freed the slaves? He screwed you.
That's right. No.
Let's vote Democrat because he was a dirty Republican.
There you go. And well, according to the people on TikTok, he was really a Democrat. He just didn't.
Right, with the party switch and everything.
So I think that part of it is that these laws have been on the books. No party has passed a law recently protecting squatters' rights in a state and allowing this to happen. Stop that nonsense with pointing fingers, right? I think this is something that we as citizens can go, I don't really care what party you're in, nobody should have to go through this, right? And I've had some really great people who've commented and said, I don't agree with your politics, but you don't deserve this. And I've had other people who say, well, I don't agree with your politics, and I think you do deserve this. And okay, well, that says more about you than me. I think and to be clear, a lot of people assumed this person was an immigrant who had come here illegally. They had not. This person was a citizen. And from what I've heard from people, squatters are about a 50-50 mix of people who are here in the country illegally, and other is citizens who, are down on their luck or are scammers and do this. So you can't point and say this is just a border issue or that it's not. It's a criminal issue that I think once people heard it in the news, they were like, oh, well, I'll just do that, right? I think this is something that came up as an opportunity for people who are criminals and scammers to do.
Well, here's the other thing. I really protecting homeowners like this, it doesn't protect just, rich white Republicans. This protects the everyman. No matter who you are, whether you're black or white, whether you're an immigrant or not, whether you're rich or poor, this helps you. It helps we the people. So I'm actually a little bit happy because in some ways this is one of the most bipartisan episodes we've ever done of this show.
I don't wish this on anybody.
Yeah.
I feel like look, I believe every American citizen, regardless of how you vote, deserves the same protections and rights under the law.
Right.
And as a homeowner, your home is your castle,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we have the Fourth Amendment that says the government can't just come in and take your home or do whatever they want. And so, why should another citizen be able to do that?
Absolutely.
So to me, I don't want to make this a political issue because it's not. I think it's a timing thing. I think it's an opportunity thing. I think
Absolutely.
that people have heard of it, and I think every politician should be put pressure on to change the laws to do this, regardless of party. So I think that's a big part of it. Is it's where we are. The other thing is, I think that we've really got to start paying attention to DAs that will prosecute these crimes, because one of the things the police officer told me is it's going to be hard. The DA isn't interested. They see this more as a civil matter instead of a criminal matter, and that's what's coming in. But that doesn't empower our police, right? If I'm a policeman and I know I get all the trouble to arrest someone just so you can turn them out, I'm not going to keep arresting.
Yeah, and I think sadly this is where you see the intersection of something that shouldn't be partisan with issues that are partisan, because
Right.
it is being tough on crime it has unfortunately become partisan, and empowering police officers to enforce the laws they should unfortunately has become a partisan issue. Although property rights and standing up for yourself as a citizen shouldn't be a partisan issue, but it intersects with other issues that are partisan. And I think that's the shame of things like this.
And I get it. Yeah, and I got to tell you, Chris, the police officers I've interacted with, because I did two. I've worked with two departments now, Dallas County Sheriff and the Mesquite Sheriff Department. Right, Dallas County is much bigger. Mesquite, the city, it resides within Dallas County. And it wasn't that they didn't want to help me. It wasn't that they were not sympathetic, that they weren't responsive, that they didn't understand my frustration. It was that they didn't care. It was there was almost I don't want to speak for them, but almost this sense of hopelessness of what can I do? It sucks, but what can I do? Right? And
Because what are they going to do? They're going to bring him in, charge him,
Yeah.
book him, and then he'll be let go because the DA says it's a civil case? And then what does that accomplish?
And then what does that accomplish?
Yeah.
And so their frustration was almost palpable. But I will tell you, the day that he was evicted and he came back, right? I called the police. They came out there right away.
Good.
They would not let him come in the house. They wouldn't even let him get near me. They stood between us, right? And the officer was like, "You can't be here," blah blah blah. And when I had to call Dallas County so that they could talk, the two police officers, so that they knew he was evicted, he could confirm it. The Dallas County sheriff, the one who'd done the eviction, right? Her part was done. Called to ask me if I was safe and I was okay.
Good. I'm glad.
And every police officer I've worked with has handed me a card. Call me if you have problems. We'll do what we can. I don't think it's at all that the police don't care and don't want to do things. I don't think they have the backup they need from our legal system to do something.
So I think,
and because of it, our citizens are being affected.
and I think this is a lesson to everybody, that everybody kind of at all levels, or at least at a lot of levels of bureaucracy, they're humans too. And sometimes people's hands are tied, and that's why instead of, lashing out and just ranting and raving, you make calls and you put pressure in a humane way on the people you've elected to try to get things done. And I think this is an example of how to turn kind of righteous rage, right, into action and results. And I think you're well on your way to doing that. We're going to keep updating you guys as this unfolds to see what uncovers. And next week, us, we'll be back to more partisan warfare on our on our next episode.
Yeah.
This was a little bit.
Look, yeah. Well, look, we'll give a squatter update. Yep. We'll give an update on the house, right? We may do a spinoff, Chris, where I do that, so we can.
Yeah.
But this is something that every American should be aware of, and we need to be aware of who we're voting for judges and for district attorney, because they're the people who empower.
And it's another lesson,
right?
that you must vote in local elections. You must vote
Yes.
in local elections, even for the thing. And you know what? Even for the offices and titles that you may not even really know what they do or care what their function is. Some of these things really matter. You may think, oh, a DA is just a job, but a DA can make the difference in a case like this.
The judge who did my case is elected,
Yeah.
right? So the voters pick someone who, allowed to me allowed. Do I think she's a bad person? No.
Yeah.
I think she's empathetic. Do I think that's always the best quality for a judge? No, a judge is there for justice.
Yeah. So the
right?
weird.
And that has to be
Exactly.
it has to be tempered with mercy. But you have to look at someone's record, and we don't do that. And what has allowed us to get to that point? I was thinking about this. We're a government for the people, by the people. We're supposed to be self-governing. And what has happened is, really, this is our fault for our own apathy. And I'm as guilty as anyone. I'm as guilty as anyone as not paying attention, not doing anything. But if we want things to change, we're the only ones who can change.
Yeah, so
I
would just give the advice that when you see,
do it on my own.
sometimes you see these local ads that come up, maybe when you're trying to watch a YouTube video, and it may say, so and so for local comptroller, or so and so for local whatever, and you may kind of roll your eyes and go, "This is just another campaign ad, and it's stupid, and it doesn't affect me." It may affect you when you're in a situation like this. So research those names. Don't just look at those ads, but if it's somebody that's representing your district or running in your district and there's an election coming up, research the name. Just do 10, 15 minutes of research. And I really mean that, because that could be the difference for the outcome of a situation like this. And I think
how they're going to vote, or what they're going to do. And it's, looking at that record, but at some point we have to decide, are we going to govern ourselves, or are we going to allow these things to happen?
And the last thing I'll say is, this is an example of neither Joe Biden nor Donald Trump would have changed the outcome for you here. This is a local issue.
Not at all.
And I think that's what's so important, and why the lesson is research your local candidates.
Yeah. Who you vote for locally has a much greater impact on your life than who you vote for president.
And it's not just governor. Look past governor, look past Congress, look past state rep, and look at these other roles. DA, circuit judges. Do research on these individual roles.
County commissioner, county tax collector. These are the people who make decisions that you deal with every day. And I remember when I was growing up, people used to always say, "Oh, all politics are local," and I didn't get that until I got in my 20s. And I started to realize they are, and we have forgotten that. We always want to look to the president, but he's on a national stage.
Yeah.
The people that we can affect and control, and quite frankly, show up on a door and yell at, are local.
100%.
They're the ones that start the change. So, and that's whose doors I started banging on. I didn't go to Washington. I started with who's over me, who can help me locally.
Yeah.
That's who I'm going to go after. And that's what I encourage people to do. And if you want to contact me on my TikTok, or you can email us here, Chris. I know we have an email. You can reach out to Chris. He's in Vegas, so he can always help. Then do it. But we have got to start putting pressure on state people to empower us to be safe in our homes.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's actually...
No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't. I'm just kidding.
I know. But anyway, that's actually our show for tonight, guys. We hope you enjoyed. We're going to have more on this.
Yes, absolutely.